Hi everyone, this is Miss Cat and I'm here today with my rabbit Locke, and we are going to talk about shedding. So when we say an animal is shedding its fur, all we mean is that it's losing its fur. So every type of animal that has fur sheds at some point. Even us humans, we shed hair because we lose hair and grow a new hair. But some animals, like rabbits and some dogs and a whole bunch of other animals actually, have something called seasonal shedding. So basically what that means is they lose almost all their fur and get a whole new coat. So they don't go totally bald because their new fur is growing in while their old fur is falling out, but they do kind of look funky like Locke does right now. You might not be able to see, I'll show her closer to the camera in a minute, because her old fur is falling out right now while her new fur is growing in because it is springtime. So the reason why they lose their fur seasonally is because in the winter they're getting a thicker coat to keep them warm, and then in the summer they're losing their thick coat so that they stay cool in the hotter temperatures. So a lot of animals have two seasonal sheddings, once in the fall to get their thicker coat in preparation for winter, and then once in the spring so they lose that thick coat so that they're ready to go in the summer. But some animals like rabbits can shed more than 2 times a year. They shed anywhere between 2 and 6 times a year, and rabbit or Locke sheds like all the time. She never stops shedding. I think it's because she has a really thick coat and we live in a warm climate here in Las Vegas, and so I think she just gets kind of confused and she just kind of sheds all the time. So the problem with shedding, with rabbits at least, is that rabbits clean themselves by licking themselves, just like cats. So they do not need to be given baths. I do not give Locke a bath. She's never had a bath because she cleans herself. But when she cleans herself, she ends up eating some of that loose fur that's on her. So normally that's okay, it'll just pass through her digestive system, it'll be totally fine. But during shedding season, she's eating a whole bunch of extra fur because she's losing all this fur. You might be able to see some flying around in the air right now. So she's losing a ton of fur right now to get ready for summer, and if she's cleaning herself, she's eating all this extra fur, and what can happen is that she can get a hairball in her stomach. And so if that hairball gets too big and it's not going through on its own, I might end up having to take her to the vet and either get her some medication that'll break up that fur ball, or she might even have to have surgery to get rid of that fur ball. So in order to avoid this, we groom Locke and Pope during the times that they're shedding in order to remove all this extra fur so that they don't eat a bunch of fur and get a fur ball in their stomach. So I'm going to show you guys how we brush her today. So there's all different kinds of rabbits, all different types of domestic rabbits out there with all different types of fur. So there are different ways to groom your rabbit, to brush your rabbit, depending on what type of rabbit you have and what type of fur they have. So these are just the tools that I use for Locke. She is a Rex rabbit. She's a mini Rex rabbit, and Rexes are the softest type of rabbit in the world because they have really short and really thick fur. So you can't use a brush like you'd use on a dog because her fur is just so short that brush wouldn't do anything. You'd be brushing her and nothing would be happening. So I have some special combs and brushes here. So this is the first one I use. This is just a bunch of metal. It's like one thin comb, metal pieces, and then the red part here is rubber. And so that is used to collect the fur. The fur basically sticks to the rubber. And so I don't use it like straight up and down like this. I use it sideways. So with her, I'm gonna show you here, do some sideways combing. And you can see already, hopefully you guys can see this, hopefully it'll focus for you there, but there's already some fur sticking out of here. So I usually only use this comb when she's shedding really badly, when she has little tufts all over her body, because this really works best when she's shedding a lot. When she's only shedding a little bit, like right now, she's just getting ready to shed, basically. She's just starting off. She's not too bad. Here, I'm gonna push her closer to the camera to see if you guys can see this. Hopefully she'll go and focus. Oops, it's okay. But she has a bunch of loose little tufts. You can see right here all these little lighter bits right there. That's a little tuft for fur coming out as part of her shedding process. So when she has a whole bunch of those all over her body, this comb works really well. But when she only has a few right now, I just use my hands to groom her actually. So I just pull off a little tuft like that and it comes right out there Hopefully that's focusing so you guys can see it. And that's how each tuft works. Every single tuft that I pull out, it pulls out a good amount of fur. I'm not pulling too hard. It's not hurting her because it's just loose fur that's sitting there. So I just gently pull and it just comes right out. If I pull and it's kind of stuck in there, if it doesn't come out very easily, then I just leave it because I don't want to hurt her. And I don't want to pull any actual fur out of her skin. I'm just pulling the loose fur off her body. So, ooh, there's a big one. So hopefully you can see that fur coming off her body. And it doesn't hurt her at all. If she's like sitting around sleeping, I can come up and pull some of these tufts off her and she won't even get up because it's not hurting her. She doesn't like it though when I come in and try to pull all the loose fur off of her. She'd rather just leave her alone. But for her health, it's important that I get all this loose fur off of her. So I'm not gonna do it all today. I just wanted to show you guys a little bit, but just from that little bit, I already have this fur ball. So they shed a ton. I'm hoping that I can insert a photo from last year's shedding season. They shed so much fur. It was a huge pile. The pile was like bigger than the rabbits themselves. And you can see just from this little tiny bit, I already have this little handful of fur. So they shed a ton during shedding season. They lose a ton of fur. So when I'm done picking out most of the tufts of her fur, I use this second brush. So this is an odd looking brush. It's just rubber and it has short little pieces of rubber sticking out here. And what this is really good for is getting all the loose fur that's on top. So not those tufts, but any loose fur that's just sitting on top sticks to this rubber. Oh, it's not working too well, but a little bit. Let's see if you can see. So it kind of gets all the extra loose fur that's sitting on top once I'm finished grooming her. So that's how I do Locke during shedding season, and I pretty much just keep going until I get all these tufts out and I clean up the top, and then when I see a bunch of tufts showing up again is the next time I will groom her. All right, I'm gonna see if I can go get Pope and show you him because his fur is a little bit different. All right, so now I have Pope here, and Pope sheds differently than Locke does because he is actually a mixed breed type of rabbit. So he's part Rex, just like Locke. He's part mini Rex. That's why he looks a lot like her, but he has other types of rabbit in him as well. So his fur is pretty different than hers. His fur is a lot fluffier, and he doesn't shed in tufts. He kind of sheds in lines. So I'm hoping you can see his shedding. I don't know if it'll show up, but he's got funky little spots here. See, and his fur just comes out so easily. He's shedding so much. So he gets weird little shapes and patterns on his fur because he's not shedding in little tufts, he's shedding in whole spots at one time. So, but just like Locke, I just kind of lightly go around his fur and just kind of pick out any loose fur that's in here. And you can see already just from that little bit, I have a ton of fur here, just from a few seconds. This comb does not work as well on his fur because he doesn't have tufts sticking out. It's just kind of loose everywhere. This works a little bit. It doesn't work too great. So you can see there's some little bit of fur in here. There we go. So I mostly just use my hands for Pope as well. Kind of pull off all the loose fur, and then I have this comb here, or this brush. I don't know what to call this. It's kind of a weird thing. You don't see this with any other animals because it's just a piece of rubber collecting all the loose fur on top. And I don't know if you can see all this fur, but there's little fur pieces floating everywhere. Oof. Do one more. Yeah, so right now this brush is working a lot better for Pope. I'm getting a good amount of fur off of him using this brush, as you can see there. So yeah, this is working really good because his fur is really light and fluffy, so it sticks to this rubber really easily. So here, I'm gonna show you this other side. This side's shedding pretty badly right now. So hopefully you can see all right here is where he's shedding, his fur is coming out. It's really easy just to pull right out. And then right here, he's got a big spot missing. one season he lost all of his old fur before his new fur was totally grown in, and he looked really funny. Hopefully I can insert a photo of that as well, because he just had like little bald spots all over his body, and he looked really funny for a while. So if I can, I'll put a photo up for you guys of that too. And so that's it. So a normal shedding, or a normal grooming session would take a lot longer. I would go through all his fur and get all the loose fur off him I can. But right now, just from Locke and Pope, just from those few minutes, they lost all this fur in just a few minutes. So you can imagine how much fur comes off them when I take my time and make sure to go through really thoroughly. So that is it. I'm going to be putting up some more videos of the rabbits eating things. If you like to watch videos of the rabbits just eat different vegetables, they're really crunchy and it's kind of cool to watch them and calming. So I hope you're all doing very well, and I will see you guys soon.